Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz, and today I've got something a little different than I usually do on the channel. I've actually got a review for a movie that's currently in the theaters, and I'm talking about the new James Gunn Superman movie, which was just released in theaters this last weekend. I don't do a whole lot of reviews of newer current movies that are in the theater. In fact, it actually has to be something pretty special for me personally to even consider going to a theater these days. I just don't get out to theaters very much anymore. But today is one of those rare exceptions. So I'll be giving you my review of the new Superman movie, but I'm going to do it in a little bit different way here because I'm also doing a ranking video of all the Superman movies, just the main, theatrical feature film releases since 1978. So I'll be doing a ranking video from my least favorite Superman movie to my favorite Superman movie, and I'll be incorporating my review of the new James Gunn Superman into that ranking list. So I'll just start off with a countdown ranking the titles, and then when I get to the point in the ranking where I've placed the James Gunn Superman movie, I'll just start doing my review right there within the ranking. Now, before I get into this ranking and review, I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of context of where I'm coming from with Superman, right? Because I'm a huge Superman fan. I've been a big fan of Superman since I was a kid. But most of my exposure to comic book heroes primarily came through film and TV. I never really got into reading comic books all that much. I read a few, but no, I was never a big comic book reader as a kid. And so that may kind of put me more in the normie camp. Rather than, certainly hardcore comic book nerd. I would not consider myself a hardcore comic book nerd. But it's hard to think of myself as a normie at the same time because I've been such a huge fan of Superman since I was a kid. It's just that all my exposure to these characters came from film and TV. I used to watch the old George Reeves Superman show, the old black and white show from the 50s. I used to watch that when I was a kid. And of course, Saturday morning cartoons, Super Friends and that kind of thing. And then, of course, I was a huge Christopher Reeve fan. I saw the first Christopher Reeve movie. I think I was like 7 years old when I saw that in the theater. And I saw the first two in the theater with my dad. And I was just a huge fan of Superman. I loved it. Those experiences at such a young age really made an impact on me and just made me a lifelong fan of Superman. So he's always been my favorite, even though I know that's kind of cliche, right? Everybody says their favorite superheroes are Superman or Batman, right? So again, that probably puts me more in the normie camp, but whatever. If that's what it is, that's what it is. And I'm a big fan of Batman, too. He's my other favorite superhero. But I've always kind of given the edge to Superman a little bit just because he's so damn cool. But beyond Christopher Reeve, here's the thing with Superman for me. Christopher Reeve will always be my Superman. He will always be like the total embodiment of Superman for me. But that doesn't mean I can't appreciate other interpretations of Superman. I was also a fan of the Zack Snyder movies and Man of Steel and Justice League. I love those movies, despite their obvious flaws, like, casting Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. That was one of the worst casting choices in history. But despite the flaws in the Snyderverse, I still enjoyed the Snyderverse for what it was because I liked that darker, more grounded or realistic approach. As realistic as something like a Superman movie can be, but I think you get what I'm saying. It was just a darker approach in general, right? Totally different from the bright and optimistic tone that we got with the Christopher Reeve Superman. And I love them both. And at the time, at least when it first came out, I even liked the 2006 Superman Returns film, the Bryan Singer film. That one kind of went off the rails a little bit in the second half of the movie, but I still enjoyed it for what it was at the time. Again, because I appreciate seeing multiple interpretations of Superman. I'm always, I'm one of those people that actually gets excited about reboots. Like, I don't have a problem when a whole universe or a whole franchise or whatever is rebooted, because I always think it's fun and exciting to see what someone else is going to do with the same material, right? With the same subject matter and the same heroes. I'm always very curious and even intrigued to see how a new director and filmmaking team will handle, one of my favorite heroes. I'm always very interested to see what someone else's vision is going to be and how it differs from previous versions that we've seen in the past. So I've always kind of considered myself fairly flexible when it comes to Superman. I mean, again, Christopher Reeve will always be my Superman, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate other Supermans and other interpretations of the Superman story. I don't know, maybe if I'd been more of a comic book reader, I'd be a lot more hardcore about this stuff. But, I'm not someone who nitpicks stuff to death, right? I'm pretty easy to please, right? There'll be a few red lines that I don't like to see crossed in any movie. But aside from that, I'm usually pretty easygoing and pretty receptive to new visions for Superman. All right, so that gives you a little bit about my background, just so you have an idea of where I'm coming from with both this ranking and the review of the new Superman movie. So now we're just going to get right into my ranking and review, and without any further ado, let's rock this. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to start off with my ranking here, and then when I get to the James Gunn film in my ranking, that's when I'll do my review for it. But I've got 9 Superman films total here that I'm including in this ranking, starting with the 1978 film, and then, of course, going all the way up to the current James Gunn film. And of course, this is a countdown from least favorite to my favorite. So starting with my least favorite Superman movie, coming in at number 9, we've got Superman 4, A Quest for Peace. This is not a good movie, not at all. And it's unfortunate too. This was a Canon Film special back in 1987. They took Canon Films, Golan and Globus. They took what was once an A-level blockbuster franchise and made a cheap, low-budget B movie out of it. Right? Or even C movie. You could even call this a C movie. I don't even know if this qualifies as a B movie. It's pretty bad. And it's just pretty cheesy, really bad effects. And not much I can really say about this. Easily my least favorite Superman film out of them all. So for my number 9, Superman 4, A Quest for Peace. All right, and coming in at number 8 is the 2006 film Superman Returns, which I have in a couple different versions. This is the only one I had that was actually had a picture of it on it. It's this bottom one here. I've got obviously a triple feature here with a little Christopher Reeve Superman action, and then the Bryan Singer film down here, right? But I'm talking about Superman Returns for my number 8. It's a film that I was kind of excited about when it first came out, but it didn't stick for me. It really didn't stick. I liked it at first, but in retrospect, it really wasn't very good. I mean, there were some good things about it, but I didn't like, what was it, Kate Bosworth as the Lois Lane. I didn't think she was a very good Lois Lane. I did like Brandon Routh. I felt like he was kind of channeling Christopher Reeve a little bit in that film, and I think that's why I liked it. And then they had some kind of callbacks to Christopher Reeve in the film too. So it was pretty cool. The first half of that film is somewhat decent. And even Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor was pretty interesting. But the film does kind of go off the rails in the second half, and it gets pretty out there. And it just wasn't really for me, right? Like in retrospect, at the time I was like, man, this is crazy. And I kind of dug it, but over time, it just really hasn't held up for me personally. So for my number 8, Superman Returns, which I have here. And then I also have it in this Blu-ray set as well. The cool thing I will say about this Blu-ray set is you get a feature-length making-of documentary of Superman Returns included here. And I think it's a long documentary. I've never watched it. I've been meaning to. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But I hear it's really good. And I think it's like 2 or 2.5 hours. It's like a really long documentary on the making of Superman Returns. So at some point, I'm going to have to check that out, maybe even sooner rather than later. I guess that's about all I can really say about this movie for my number 8, Superman Returns. All right, and moving right along to my number 7 here, we've got another Christopher Reeve film from 1983, the one with Richard Pryor, Superman 3. And I did get a kick out of Richard Pryor in this movie. This is I have mixed feelings about this movie because I used to watch it a lot as a kid. It used to play on cable TV all the time, along with the first two. But when this first came out, it was definitely playing on cable TV a lot. So I just happened to rewatch it a lot because it was always on. And so I kind of like it. And I kind of have some nostalgia for it for that reason. But it's not a very good movie. This was another Richard Lester special. So he went a little bit more slapstick with this movie. And that's where it kind of suffers. But it still has some redeeming qualities about it. There are some endearing qualities that I still appreciate, and so I don't mind popping it on every once in a while. But it certainly doesn't rank that high relative to some of the other Superman movies for me. So yeah, for my number 7, Superman 3. All right, getting into a little Snyderverse territory here. For my number 6, we've got one that, this was kind of tough. I wasn't sure whether to put this after or before Superman 3. It was a tough call for me. But this one, I think I probably watch a little bit more often, and so that's why it got the edge. And I'm talking about Batman versus Superman, my least favorite of the Snyder movies. And, this movie has a lot of problems with it. It really does. I love the Snyderverse. I love aesthetically what Zack Snyder does. And I love the way his films look and some of the cool stuff he does with them. But, he's not the best at casting and or at telling stories. His storytelling needs some work. First of all, you got Jesse Eisenberg cast as Lex Luthor. I mean, how do you cast someone like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor? Worst casting choice in film history, as far as I'm concerned, or one of them. It will go down as one of the worst casting choices in film history. I mean, he was terrible in the role, and he's pretty cringe. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex. It was kind of hard to watch when I was watching this last week. I was like, man, this really does suck. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex. And it kind of bugs me more now than it did even when I first saw this. I was a little bit more accepting of the film a few years ago, but now I'm just not as into it, and a lot of that has to do with Jesse Eisenberg, but it also has to do with the fact that Batman has his head stuck up his ass for the first 2/3 of the movie, and nobody wants to see Batman with his head stuck up his ass. So that was problematic for me. I feel like this movie gets a lot better after Batman pulls his head out of his ass. Then the movie gets good. But before that, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And there's other issues too. The whole, you're killing Martha and all that. That was pretty weak. But whatever, what are you going to do? These films are imperfect. They all have their flaws, even the best ones. Right. So that's the way it goes. So yeah, number 6 sounded about right for me. For BVS. So for my number 6, Batman versus Superman. Okay, and next up for my number 5, we have to give it up for Zack Snyder's Justice League. And, I don't count the Justice League version, right? The original theatrical cut that was basically a Joss Whedon movie. Yeah, Justice League, that's an abomination. And I don't even, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't even exist in my mind. This is the only legitimate version of Justice League, right? The 4-hour cut or whatever, right? So I love this. I thought it was awesome. I was really excited when this first came out. I remember when I first saw the theatrical Justice League, I wasn't that impressed. I didn't think much of it. But when I heard that Zack Snyder had been, given the ability to complete his vision, I was excited. And the idea of seeing a 4-hour Justice League movie was very exciting to me. And I really loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Definitely better than BVS, right? So, yeah, I don't know how much I can really say about this. I do like the Snyderverse, and, this is a big part of why I like the Snyderverse. I loved how epic he went with it, and I only wish that we could have seen him finish what he started. That's the only downside. We never got to see that war with Darkseid fully unfold, right? So it's kind of a bummer. It's kind of bittersweet, and I know a lot of Zack Snyder fans out there are still pretty sore about that. I consider myself a Zack Snyder fan to an extent, but the main reason I like him is because of his visual aesthetics, the way he makes his films. I'm objective enough to recognize that he has his flaws. He's not good at casting. He's not good at necessarily writing the stories, but he's really good at making the movies and making them look really cool. So I definitely come out somewhere in the middle, I think, when it comes to Zack Snyder. I'm definitely not like a hardcore Snyder fan, but at the same time, I appreciate what he did. And I'm not I'm not a Snyder hater either. So yeah, I think that's about all I can really say about this one for now. I do like this movie, and I really liked what Zack Snyder brought to the table. So for my number 5, Zack Snyder's Justice League. All right, so I'm guessing at this point, at least some of you are probably wondering, when is this James Gunn movie and review going to appear in this ranking? Because it obviously wasn't in the bottom half of my list, which is certainly an indication that I like it at least somewhat. Right? So what do you think? Is it next? No, it's not next. Next up, for my number 4, Man of Steel, Zack Snyder. I thought this was a great movie. I really enjoyed Zack Snyder's darker approach to this whole world. I like the darker approaches, just like I like the Dark Knight trilogy as well. For Batman, that's my favorite Batman, is the Dark Knight trilogy. But yeah, I love the darker, more cynical world that Zack Snyder created with his universe. I love the way they did the origin story with this film. And, I actually liked Russell Crowe in the role of Jor-El. I thought he was great in this. It was cool seeing so much of Krypton, in a modern film. And to see how they do Krypton, in the modern era. And I thought they pulled it off great. I also liked Zod in that film too. Michael Shannon, he was awesome. I mean, in my view, he was every bit as menacing as Terrence Stamp was in Superman 2. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this film, and it was actually kind of a tough call on where to put this in my ranking. I was going to put it for my number 3, but ultimately I had to knock it down a notch to number 4, and you'll see why here in just a moment. So yeah, for my number 4, Man of Steel. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do, don't forget to activate those notifications as well so you can be alerted whenever I'm posting videos that you might be interested in. Also, don't forget to like the channel as well and maybe share it if you're feeling so inclined. It really does help with the channel's visibility and the algorithm on YouTube. Thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate it. Quick programming note here. You notice my shirt has changed back to the Superman shirt. I actually didn't realize that I hadn't put it back on. Basically, I was recording this video with my Superman shirt on, and I had to stop and go run an errand. And so I changed my shirt to go run that errand. And then when I came back to finish recording the video, I forgot to put my Superman shirt on. So please forgive the inconsistency there in my video. I'm back, though. I'm glad I caught it and didn't just do the whole rest of the video in that black shirt, because this was obviously the intent of me purchasing this shirt was to wear it for this video. So you know what can I say? Sometimes I'm just a fuck up. I mean, I'm not even sure if I really needed to explain the wardrobe change, but it just seemed weird to me to have that switch and not let you guys know what the fuck was going on. But enough of that. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled video. All right, now it's time for my number 3, which is James Gunn Superman. So here we go. Now it's time for my review here. And I got to say, I took a shitload of notes for this review. I mean, I wrote down a lot of stuff just to keep track of my thoughts and make sure I remembered everything I wanted to say. So yeah, I mean, I originally intended to do this review a couple days ago. I was going to put this video out a couple days ago. I saw Superman in the theater like a 2 p.m. showing last Thursday. So the first day that it was technically open to the public or everything, not the preview screenings, but the first day of actual full day of screenings or whatever. I saw it then. And, I was all in on this Superman. I was super excited about it going into it. So I don't know, maybe that helped my experience a little bit. It probably also helped that I kept my expectations low. I went into it with a hopeful frame of mind that hopefully this will be something I really dig. I didn't go into it expecting it to be a very specific conception of Superman. And And as a result, I think I was able to get a lot more enjoyment out of the film. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I had a blast with it. Me and my son went, my 15-year-old son. He loved it too, and he's seen all the Superman stuff, or a lot of the big stuff, the Zack Snyder movies and the Christopher Reeve movies. I got him started on the Christopher Reeve movies when he was young, and then, introduced him to the Zack Snyder movies when he was a little bit older. And so he was interested, and he enjoyed it. He had a lot of fun with it. But it is a very different movie than we've ever seen before for Superman. And so you got to go into it with realistic expectations. I think the best way to go into it is with zero expectations, completely set aside all the other movies and TV shows or anything, and just go into it and let the experience kind of wash over you. I think that's the best way to enjoy it. Don't overthink it. Don't nitpick too much on it, just enjoy what he's presenting. And I don't know, I had a great time. Not everybody agrees with me, but we'll get into that more here. Like I said, I've got a lot to say, so you're probably going to see me reading my notes quite a bit. Again, these are all my thoughts. I just, I had to write a lot of stuff down because as I was thinking about it over, the past few days, I realized, yeah, man, I've got a lot to say about this. And that's why I wanted to take a couple extra days to kind of process all this and really chew on the film and make sure that this was, that my ranking and my rating are what I wanted them to be. Just to try and minimize any recency bias, right? Because that is the thing. Sometimes we're all pumped up about a movie right after we get out of the theater. And that's why I didn't record my review on Friday. I saw it on Thursday. My plan originally was to record it on Friday and try and get the review out over the weekend. But I just decided to sit on it for a couple days. And plus, I was waiting for this shirt to arrive. But anyway, there's not going to be any spoilers here in this review. So keep that in mind. I mean, there might be a couple things at the beginning of the film that I mentioned, a couple pieces of information from the opening kind of text montage of the film, which is really important to see, by the way. Don't arrive late. If you go see this film, get there with plenty of time so you do not miss the intro, because it's really important. And I might share a couple pieces from that for you just to kind of help you understand what you're getting yourself into, because this is, like I said, a very different type of Superman movie than we've ever seen before, which is not a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing. I'll admit I was a little nervous about James Gunn directing this movie going into it originally, but he absolutely delivered. This is a really fun, engaging, and entertaining film. And like I said, my son and I had a blast watching this movie. We chose Dolby Cinema. I love the Dolby Cinema. It has a massive screen that is as big as any IMAX screen that we have nearby. And of course, you get the Dolby Atmos sound, which is amazing. And we had perfect seats right in the center, the perfect position. I think the best seats in the theater for this. And it was so much fun. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that James Gunn was not just establishing a new Superman here with this film. He was establishing an entirely new DC universe, right? So there's going to be a new Batman, a new Flash, a new Wonder Woman, new Aquaman, hopefully a new Hal Jordan Green Lantern, because we haven't seen that since that Ryan Reynolds film, which I actually liked at the time. But I would like to see an updated version of the Hal Jordan Green Lantern. But the key here is Gunn wasn't just reintroducing us to Supes. He was giving us a glimpse of what the new, larger DCU was going to look like, right? Kind of painting a portrait of what the whole world's going to look like for us. And it got me really excited to see more. I was very excited about all the characters and cool things in this film. So ultimately, this movie didn't just get me excited about Superman again. It got me excited to see a whole new DCU and to see where he's going. And in fact, after seeing this movie, I'm now more interested in Supergirl, which is apparently coming at some point. I didn't think I really cared about Supergirl, but after seeing this movie, I enjoyed it so much. Now I actually am interested in Supergirl, and I'd love to see that origin story. James Gunn took some huge outside-the-box swings with this film. And for me, those swings absolutely paid off. The movie is bold and bright, colorful, exciting, and bombastic. I love the way that Gunn uses the camera, the shot composition, the POVs, and just the camera movement in general. He does a lot of really cool stuff that I found really compelling, and I really get into that stuff. I love the aesthetic stuff, and, the filmmaking techniques that are used. I'm often more drawn to that than I am, the dialogue or even the story. Although I do care about the story, I just I tend to hone in more on filmmaking techniques and that kind of thing these days, just because I find it interesting, to see the different ways different directors approach filmmaking. And I didn't even know if I was going to like James Gunn's style, because I haven't been the biggest James Gunn fan, just in general. Like, I don't care about his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Like, those just don't do a whole lot for me. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the movies. I'm sure they're well-made movies. I've seen the first two. I don't think I ever saw the third one. They're fine. They're well-made movies. They didn't do much for me. Just that style of movie and the humor and stuff. So, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about James Gunn directing a DC movie. I was afraid he was going to turn it into a Marvel joke fest, but he didn't. I mean, it's humorous. It's lighthearted. But he reined it in a little bit. He didn't go overboard with the jokes, and make the whole thing just centered around wisecracks and witty comebacks, or contrived wisecracks and witty comebacks. But what I found is that I really did like James Gunn's style with this movie, even though I haven't been necessarily a big fan of his other films. I mean, I have the Suicide Squad, and that was okay. It was mildly entertaining, but it didn't blow my mind or anything. I don't know. I like this better. Superman. I like Superman way more than anything else I've seen James Gunn do. So I was pretty happy with it. Also, it's a fast-paced movie with action that just seldom lets up. Right, it is pretty relentless. The 2-hour runtime, or just over 2-hour runtime, felt like a 90-minute movie. It really did. I mean, it just flew by. And I've heard a lot of people say the same thing. That they couldn't believe how quickly the movie was over. And, the ending kind of takes you by surprise a little bit, that it comes up so fast, right? But I think that's a testament to how entertaining this movie really is. And it is extremely entertaining. I mean, I was totally locked in and engaged in this film the whole time. And it's just so quickly paced and so fast paced, and just the way it's all put together, it just moves right along. But it doesn't, at least to me, it didn't feel rushed. It felt like natural, mostly natural. I mean, there's some flaws in the film. It's not a perfect film. But generally speaking, I was pretty comfortable with the pace, and I was pretty happy with how it all kind of unfolded. It felt just right for me, just about right for me. All right, let's see what else I wanted to say here. There are a lot of characters in the movie too, so it's a pretty jam-packed movie. And because you've got a lot of characters in a 2-hour runtime, the character development is going to suffer a little bit. Although I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it was necessary for this film. I don't think we needed a whole lot of character development. If you just go with the ride and the information they give you, you'll be fine. You don't necessarily need to know the origin or backstory of every character. Although after seeing this, I did a little research on a couple characters just to learn more about them. Not having been a big comic book person myself in my life, there's a lot of holes in my knowledge, of course. But there are a lot of characters in this movie, and that was one of the criticisms. I didn't think it felt too full. In fact, that's actually what's kind of interesting about it. Even though there's a lot going on and there are a lot of characters, at the same time, it somehow all never feels like it's too much. It never feels too overwhelming. It feels appropriate to the film. I mean, it all just works, right? David Cornsweet as Superman. He absolutely nailed the role. I loved him in the lead role. He was awesome. In fact, I think James Gunn made a damn near perfect casting choice with this. So I was really happy with Cornsweet. He seems like he was born to play this role. We get our kind of goofy, nerdy, hopeful, optimistic Boy Scout back. And that was really refreshing to see. Especially after the Snyder run of films. I really dug that. I mean, this definitely is not the dark world that Zack Snyder created with his film. It's a more upbeat, positive, just a brighter world than what we got from Zack Snyder. Very different vibe in general, right? The other actors were amazing as well. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. I loved him. I loved him as Lex. He was an inspired choice. And he is a pretty sinister and broken Lex Luthor. So I thought he played the role well. Also, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. I loved her. She was awesome. I know, it's a glowing review. And that's what you should expect with this, because it's a great film. I really enjoyed it. I could swear at times Rachel Brosnahan was almost channeling Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. There were a few things there where I almost kind of got a little chill there. I was like, well, damn, that's almost just like Margot. And of course, Margot Kidder for me set the standard for Lois Lane in movies, right? But I think Rachel Brosnahan is the best Lois Lane that we've seen since Margot Kidder. All right, what else can I say here? The movie, it's a very comic book looking film. Right. It's very comic book like in terms of the feel, the aesthetic, the tone. It's not at all grounded in reality. And you have to keep that in mind. Don't go into a comic book movie like this expecting to apply real world logic or real world physics. Right. This is very much a more fantastical, comic movie. Right. So it's not meant to be grounded in reality. Yeah, it's almost cosmic, I think. Fantastical and cosmic. I've heard some comic book fans out there, comic nerds that I listen to on their YouTube channels. I've heard quite a few suggest that this Superman movie is straight out of the Silver Age, although it seems like James Gunn is kind of drawing from all different kinds of sources with this. There's a lot of stuff that it seems like is straight out of the comics, but he's got Easter eggs hidden all throughout it, that reference all kinds of things. The Christopher Reeve films, Smallville. There's a bunch of stuff in there. In fact, I'm still in the process of discovering all those Easter eggs, which I'm having a lot of fun with. Like I said, the tone is upbeat, hopeful, optimistic, inspiring. And it's, like I said, also lighthearted without being too overly jokey. And the lightheartedness, it came off as natural and organic most of the time. The lightheartedness that's in the film, I thought it was very, very natural. I think Gunn struck a good balance there, and didn't go overboard with the humor. I was expecting it to be a lot more jokey than it actually was. The humor's there, but it's mild. He doesn't go, like I said, he doesn't go overboard with it. And the movie also has kind of an episodic vibe to it, almost as if you just opened up a comic book issue, right, and watched it spring to life and suddenly be transformed into a full-length live-action feature film. That's what it feels like when you're watching this movie. It feels like you just opened up a comic book and started reading, except instead of reading, it just came to life on the screen. They basically drop you right in the middle of a story already in progress, right? And you're off and running. And it is a little bit jarring at first. If you're not expecting it, it can be a little bit jarring, and it might take a little getting used to. Might take you a little time to kind of settle into the movie, a good 15, 20 minutes or something like that. But I don't know. I didn't have a problem with it. Knowing what I know now about the movie, I loved the way they did it. It was something definitely a little different than we've come to expect with Superman in film. And I was totally here for it. And on that note, I should also say, don't go into this film expecting an origin story again. They are not redoing the whole Superman origin story with, seeing Jor-El on Krypton and then him, coming here as a baby and all that. There is an opening text montage that is really important that you don't miss. In fact, if you miss it, you might be a little bit lost on this movie. It might take you a while to figure out what the hell's going on, because there's some key important information in that opening. It's almost like an opening crawl, except it's not a crawl. It's like this text montage where you have a few lines of text that appear. And I'm going to talk about what's in that text montage a little bit here. It's the only thing. I don't know if I'd call this a spoiler, because they tell you it right at the beginning of the movie. It's part of the setup of the movie. So I figured it's all right to mention a couple of those things. But that opening text thing lets you know what's going on here, that lets you know where in the timeline you're at, and it helps you get your bearings on the situation that they're about to drop you right into. Right? So they tell you, for example, metahumans, with powers, people with powers have been a thing on Earth for like 300 years, right? It's like an everyday routine occurrence now, metahumans. So you go into the movie with that knowledge, everybody knows what metahumans are and people with powers and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It's already setting you up to tell you this is a little bit more of a fantastical world than we've seen before. Right? And then they also tell you, 30 years ago, a baby was, sent to Earth from Krypton, right? And then they let you know that 3 years ago, that Superman revealed himself to the world as the most powerful metahuman ever. And there's a couple other things too. I'm not saying everything, but the final thing they say, and this is key, is that 3 minutes ago, Superman just lost his first battle ever. And then they plop you right into the film and show you where he's at. It's awesome. I loved it. It's so outside the box that they went this route. At least I think it is. It's a different way to approach this and to set up the whole Superman world. And I guess the thinking was, James Gunn didn't really want to do an origin story because he felt like this origin story had been done many times before, and that everybody knows the origin story. We didn't need to redo that whole thing again, right? And I get that. It kind of frees him up to focus on other things. And that's exactly what he did with this movie. So I would encourage you to not miss that opening crawl. It's really important that you get there in time to see the beginning. It's like the first minute or two of the movie that you do not want to miss. Otherwise, you might find yourself a little bit confused. But it's great stuff. Now, keep in mind, this Superman is a younger, less experienced Superman who's still learning. And that's kind of an important part of the plot, right? He's still coming to terms with some things, most notably his own humanity, Superman's humanity. That's a theme in the movie, a pretty big one, actually. So keep that in mind. I recommend just going into this film with a completely open mind. Really, you should, set aside any previous films. Try not to compare this to those films. I know it's hard to do, so many of us, we get a very specific idea in our head of what a Superman movie should or shouldn't be. And anything that, any interpretation that doesn't line up with that, sometimes some of us get kind of disappointed, right? As I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty flexible with this stuff. I like seeing new interpretations of Superman. I always like seeing how a new director and team is going to present the story, right? I get a kick out of it. I get a charge out of it. It's fun for me. I'm one of those guys who does not mind reboots of superhero films. I do think it's important to keep your expectations realistic. Don't go into this movie expecting everything to line up perfectly with your ideal conception of Superman. You're setting yourself up for disappointment if you do that. I mean, if you're like me at all and you're fairly flexible and you can appreciate new/multiple interpretations of Superman without feeling like they are taking away anything from the previous interpretations, that seems to be a big one. Sometimes people seem to think that if you dig one film, it takes away from Christopher Reeve's Superman somehow. It doesn't. It's just a new interpretation. So if you can appreciate multiple interpretations without thinking that a new interpretation is going to take something away from the previous interpretation, then I think there's a good chance you'll really dig this movie. Especially if you can treat it like the popcorn movie that it is and not overthink it. I think that's the biggest problem. I think there are people out there, the people who are criticizing it, or I think they're overthinking it way too much, and I think they're nitpicking it to death. And I don't think that's helpful. I really don't. And I don't think it's necessary. But some people just have a very specific, rigid, in some cases, idea in their minds as to what Superman should or shouldn't be. And, if the new films don't line up with that, or they're not able to check all the boxes off on their list, then they're disappointed. And of course, there are some people who will never be okay with any Superman who's not Christopher Reeve. Or, if you're a Zack Snyder, Henry Cavill fan, any Superman that's not Henry Cavill. And look, I do understand that not everyone is going to appreciate and enjoy every interpretation and incarnation of Superman. I mean, I respect that. I really do. But I do feel like some Superman fans are reading way too much into this new movie. And like I said, just nitpicking the hell out of it. And again, to be fair, this isn't a perfect film. It does have some flaws, right? It's just that I tend to think those flaws are minor, which is why I'm giving it such a glowing review, because the flaws don't really bother me, And sometimes some things that some people think are issues or flaws are not necessarily issues or flaws. They're just personal preferences and personal interpretations, right? What one person may think is an issue, another person may actually think it's pretty cool and doesn't think it's an issue at all. It might, one man's shit is another man's gold. You know how that goes, right? Movies are subjective, right? So, we're not all going to see it the same way. But what can I say? I sure love this one. I mean, the way I see it, just about any Superman movie I've ever seen has some flaws, right? There is no such thing as a perfect Superman movie. And I'm beginning to think that at this point in time, I'm not sure it's possible to create a Superman movie that the fan base wouldn't be divided on. There have been so many interpretations, so many versions of Superman, and over the years that everybody's got their own favorite and their own personal thing that they're locked in on, and it's hard to get past that when a new interpretation comes along. But yeah, the film has a few flaws, but nothing that was a deal breaker for me personally. I mean, if I can set aside a flaw as egregious as the casting of Jesse Eisenberg for the role of Lex Luthor, then I can certainly overlook any minor flaws in the new James Gunn Superman. All right, now I wanted to address an issue with this film that some people have had some concerns about and apprehension about based on media reports and things they've heard out there about the film. Some people have had concerns and apprehension about seeing the film because they heard reports that the movie is political. They have concerns about the movie being used as a vehicle to advance some kind of ideologically driven narrative, right? Essentially, people were worried the film was going to be woke. It's not. It's not woke. It's not politically charged. It's not agenda-driven at all. In fact, to the point where it was extremely refreshing that it was not political for a change. This film is nothing like the crap we've gotten from Marvel over the last 5 years. They put out a lot of garbage, right? This new Superman is nothing like that. And you can trust me on that. I mean, if I thought this movie was politically charged and agenda-driven, I would tell you, because I would have a problem with it if that were the case. But that's not what's going on here. So it's a family movie. Everybody can appreciate this movie. When James Gunn said that it really is a movie for everyone, it really is a movie for everyone. So keep that in mind, all right? Don't buy into some of this garbage that we've heard about the movie being political. It's not. The themes explored in the movie are universal themes that we can all get behind and relate to on some level, right? Hope, optimism, kindness, integrity, even something like cynicism toward the media, right? I mean, that's something we can all relate to on some level, regardless of where we may fall on the political spectrum. So, I think there's a lot of stuff in this film that we can all identify with, right? And that's good stuff. That's what you want in a movie. You want universal themes that everybody can relate to. And I think that's exactly what James Gunn gave us here with his new Superman. Like I said, this film is extremely refreshing. And my personal view is that anybody who thinks this is some politically charged movie is, in my humble opinion, reading way the fuck too much into this movie. I mean, there are a lot of reductionist type hot takes out there from a lot of negative Nancys, as I like to call them, with some people seemingly finding political narratives and agendas lurking in every corner and crevice and every corner of the frame and inserted into every aspect of the film. That's bullshit. That's not the case at all with this movie. That's simply not an accurate characterization of this film. It's not political. It really isn't. I mean, you don't get the feeling from this film like you're being lectured to, or like someone is beating you over the head with some kind of activist, agenda-driven messaging. That's not the case at all with this movie. I mean, the whole reason this story came out was because of a bullshit article and interviewer at Variety. And you got to keep in mind, you cannot trust anything coming from Variety, at least not when it comes to stuff like this, right? The entertainment establishment media like Variety and Hollywood Reporter and Deadline, most of them are garbage, right? You can get some information from them, but for the most part, they're garbage publications. And they have a bunch of hacks working for them, a bunch of political hacks who try to infuse political narratives into everything they do, even when it's a movie that's not political. So you got to take those kind of publications with a grain of salt. They misrepresent people and quote them out of context and radically like spin their words and twist their words around all the time. That's exactly what they did with James Gunn. And so people got the impression that James Gunn was pushing some kind of political messaging, and he really wasn't. He wasn't. They twisted and contorted his answers around and then inserted a little editorializing in their articles to make it seem like that's what he had said. But that's not what he said. I mean, you do get some geopolitics in the film as part of the story, like as a legitimate part of the story, but it's not like some kind of allegory for anything happening in the world. I mean, James Gunn wrote this, 3 years ago now, I think, close to 3 years ago. So yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with anything going on in the world. It's just like if there's geopolitics in the film, it's actually a legitimate part of the story. It's not some kind of, it's not there for some kind of agenda or political messaging. All right, so enough about that. I hope I have maybe put some of you at ease who might have had concerns about that aspect of this film. So what else can I say? I'm about to wrap it up, I think. That's about it for my review. Let's talk about the physical media real quick. But I'll just sum up. I loved this James Gunn movie. I loved the fresh take. And I didn't have a problem with any of the issues or flaws that other people seem to think. I mean, there's a few things actually that are not perfect, like I said, but for the most part, none of it was a deal breaker for me. It was a really entertaining film that moves at a fast pace and keeps you engaged the whole time. And I was all in on it. And so was my son. We just had a blast with this movie. So I highly recommend checking it out on the biggest screen possible. Check it out on an IMAX or a Dolby Cinema screen or something like that. But if you're a fan of Superman and you have a fairly open mind, I think you're going to like it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Now, I did want to say one last thing about the physical media for this release, because you can already pre-order physical media 4K releases of this new Superman movie. In fact, I went to see it on Thursday, right? And by Friday morning, the pre-orders were already live on Amazon for the Superman Steelbook, for the new James Gunn Superman. And as soon as I saw it, I immediately pulled the trigger on it and pre-ordered it because the Steelbook looks awesome, right? Now, there is a standard edition release as well. I'm not sure if they've got the art squared away yet on the standard edition, but the Steelbook art looks awesome. I am so excited about it. And it appears... unless something's changed in the last few hours or whatever, but it appears that they all sold out. Now it says on Amazon that they're temporarily out of stock, but I mean that's Steelbook. Friday is when I noticed it was available. It was sold out by like Saturday night. I mean those Steelbooks went super quick. And I don't know if they're going to be restocking them, if they're going to have more available, a greater allotment that they can sell or whatnot. Right now, it says temporarily out of stock, which usually means on Amazon that they're planning on getting more in, right? But there have been times where I've seen it say temporarily out of stock, and then the stock never, ever comes back in, and eventually it just switches to currently unavailable, which is what it says when something's out of print and long gone. But the Steelbook is cool. It comes with this cool clear plastic printed slipcover like we see on some of these other releases that protects the Steelbook. So I always appreciate that. You got the Fortress of Solitude. So yeah, I am really excited about this one. I'm kind of wondering if they're going to release some kind of chunky box like a deluxe steelbook collector's edition or something, because Warner Brothers has been known to do that from time to time with certain titles, right? With quite a few titles, actually. Most recently, Lethal Weapon, and I got Twister in a nice chunky box, so I'm hoping we get the new James Gunn Superman in a chunky box as well. And if that happens, I'll cancel my steelbook order and just order the chunky box instead, which usually comes with a steelbook when Warner Brothers is doing those. But I'm glad I didn't wait on pulling the trigger on this, because I didn't think the steelbooks were going to sell out that fast. Like, I thought it might sell out in a week or two, but I didn't think it was going to sell out in 2 days or under 2 days. So I'm glad I pulled the trigger on that. But I will put a link to both of the James Gunn Superman 4K releases that are in existence in the description below. I'll even put a link to the sold out steelbook just so you can keep an eye on that and monitor it and see if they get back any more in stock. But I'll also put a link to the standard 4K as well for those who want to pre-order. All right, so of course that was a very long entry in my Superman ranking list, but for my number 3, James Gunn's Superman. All right, so let's wrap up this ranking now. That was a long entry, wasn't it? For my number 2, you guys know what my top 2 are going to be. It should be pretty obvious by now. Superman 2, I prefer the Richard Donner cut, of course, but I do like the theatrical as well. So, I like the Donner cut more, but the theatrical has a few scenes in it that I do like. The only unfortunate thing is you have to sacrifice the Donner cut to see those scenes. So usually I just go with the Donner cut because it's just a better cut. It's more in line with what his vision of the film actually was. Anyway, a lot of nostalgia for this film, and I just talked about it not that long ago, so I'm not going to say too much here. Used to watch this one all the time, saw it in the theater when it first came out, and I just love this one, and it played on cable TV endlessly, and I watched it over and over again. I've just always loved this movie. So yeah, for my number 2, Superman 2. And then, of course, my number 1 is the 1978 classic, Superman the movie. Like I said, Christopher Reeve, he's my Superman, right? He is the embodiment of Superman for me personally. Even though I can still appreciate different versions of Superman, Christopher Reeve still tugs at the nostalgia strings for me, and I have great memories going to the theater, seeing this movie, seeing the sequel with my dad. For that reason, this will probably always be my number 1 Superman movie. What can you really say about this one? It is a stone cold classic in my book. Many consider this the definitive portrayal of Superman on film, and I'm mostly inclined to agree. I just love Superman the movie. So for my number 1, Superman the movie with Christopher Reeve. Okay, so that about wraps it up for my review of James Gunn's Superman and my Superman movie ranking. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you seen the new James Gunn Superman? And if so, what did you think? Do you share my views on this, or did you find yourself hating on it? I'd love to hear from you regardless, even though we may not agree. I always love hearing from you guys and chatting with you guys in the comments. So make sure you leave me some feedback down below. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.